Hello and welcome back to Sermonink. We're going to be drawing you to Christ. This is, again, a bit of a series on how to draw sermons so that you can understand kind of the metaphorical side of what's being taught and keep your brain engaged while you're listening. So, the next thing we're going to look at here is what happens whenever a preacher has a very specific order and collection of words that maybe could be a little bit difficult to draw. Certainly, we can think about direction with a compass or something like that, or delight with a smiley face. These things can happen, but at times it gets a little bit difficult just to kind of keep up with these things. So, how can we actually say what they're saying? How can we draw? How can we write what they're saying? Well, sometimes I find it just the best thing to go with it and just write it. So let's look at this. How does it work out in the situation in this sermon? This was a sermon on Psalm 1. So we talk about the framing and some other things. To start with, since it talks about blessed is the person who does not walk in the advice of the wicked, or stand in the pathway of sinners, or sit in the company of mockers. Instead, his delight is in the Lord's instruction, and he meditates it by day and night. He is like a tree planted beside flowing streams. So this kind of like a lot of that what's going on. So as I frame it, I kind of think the major idea in this is kind of this flowing stream. We want to be like this tree that's planted by the flowing stream. So that's kind of how I start whenever I went, is I went ahead and drew this stream, had a bit of different blue there, and I started working on the tree. The first point was the direction and talking about the person who delights in the law of the Lord. And so if you'll see, I actually wrote out the word direction there. You can see that was his first point. And the direction comes in this arrow. Okay, so I didn't go with the compass this time, but you can kind of see how that works. And then behind it is the person who's delighting in the law. That's the Torah right there. So can I draw out law, perhaps with 10 commandments or something like that? But sometimes it's just easier to go ahead and throw those words on there. Okay. The next thing was delight. And the preacher was talking about how he delights in the ideas of the Lord. And so I kind of have these light bulbs representing ideas, and I put the letter D in there just to kind of help remind myself there was that delight kind of concept. The third thing was the distinctiveness, and so I put that up here in the tree. Just needed to kind of have a place. I want you to see that whereas there's kind of a left-right orientation here, there's not necessarily up here. We just kind of jump up there, and that's okay. That's why I went ahead and wrote the number 3 next to it so I can follow. Again, we're not always going to be able to draw every single concept as a metaphor, but at times we can do that. So the distinctiveness of the fruit in the tree, that kind of comes apart as it's different. You see also that when he made a good comment, I wrote that as well. So God can use a broken limb. And I actually have that here drawn out. And you can also see that I added it on to a place where it already drawn. That's okay. We just got to keep the flow going. And as he's talking about other things, he talks about the fourth idea is destiny. Now, this also helped me use this large open space here because I like to have those things filled in. But what he's trying to say is that all of this, the tree that's planted by waters and everything like that, that led to prosperity. Again, can I actually draw out prosperity? I can draw out some money bags and things like that. But in this case, just for the ease of clear understanding, I wrote out prosperity and even heaven just to make sure that people understood that's what it is. So that our destiny isn't kept in heaven. Other than that, while they're drawing, I did, since this particular psalm has a lot of visual concepts, you can see the chaff and the wind, just like the wicked. And then even here, these are the seat of scoffers. And so just to be fun, you can see that I talked about the scoffers' furniture. They're selling the seats for scoffers to sit in. Okay. And so just all those things. Another thing I'll talk about another time is just word pictures. Sometimes word bubbles. Those can be really fun just to kind of express an idea. Or another thing you can do is just draw signs like that. And we'll talk more about signs in another video with yield and stop signs and things that we would recognize. But also just so you can see that here, I have the person meditating in God's word. So I've actually written out both meditation and God's word. So, of course, this looks a little bit like transcendental meditation, but that's not really what I was going for overall, thinking more of the Christian version of meditation, which is actually thinking and sitting and mulling over something. Okay. And so, in general, we just have all those things, but I wanted to show you that you can use words for clarity's sake, and you'll see them in most of my pictures. But I like to have kind of the feeling and the idea of the concept overall. And again, that kind of comes through this idea of the stream, the tree planted. They're so obvious, even if it's not in the very middle. Okay. All right. Let me know if you have any questions.